people think that AI might be this little monkey in a box who's really smart and he knows what to do. No, it's about the fact that it lets you take all the pieces of the operation, optimize them so that they perform exactly as you want them and need them to. And in that way, you get incremental savings.
Hello.
Perfect.
Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining. I'm really excited to have Bobby. Robert, do you go by Robert or Bobby typically?
Anything but Rob or Robbie.
Okay, I like it. Well, Bobby or Robert. Robert, I'm really excited to have you. I'm excited to share what you're doing, and I don't think it's something that we talk about very often or enough. And so I guess as we were just saying offline, the innovation that comes and the opportunity that AI is part of that innovation that's really going to be discussed as the industry evolves and throughout the pandemic. So if you don't mind for a minute, real quick, introducing yourself, telling me a little bit about how you got into this industry and where you came from.
Well, good afternoon, Mandy. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robert Ziner. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Canadian Industrial Hemp Corporation. We have developed and have now patent pending globally on an AI-driven smart factory for hemp stock processing to convert it into hemp fiber optimization. And we'll do that by redefining the economics and creating new opportunities for products which we can provide with automatic quality control. I got into the hemp business, I guess, really going back to my beginnings in the lumber industry, which takes me back to 1973. And I was involved in a family lumber and distribution business, lumber being commodities, distribution being very commodity oriented, hard to differentiate. And we were looking for ways to improve our opportunity and came across secondary processing. And it was a very good way to stabilize our costs on lumber. We would take wide, long pieces of low-grade wood, and we would cut it into smaller, higher value pieces that would fulfill our specific market needs. Mm-hmm. And in that way, we found that we were able to be much more competitive in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And so our sales grew considerably. But what wasn't growing was the margin, because we were trading the margin for the market penetration. And out of that, I became interested in how automation may be an opportunity for us. Mm-hmm. So this was in 1988. I approached General Electric Factory Automation. I had read an article about them in an engineering magazine with regards to the completion of basically the world's first automated production facility. GE owned a locomotive assembly plant in upstate New York. What I read about that factory was just amazing. The way how the entire production was being controlled by the computer systems. And I had always been very interested in computers. I put a computer into our family business in 1984. And no, I'm sorry, that was 1974.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it huge?
It was the original version of the mini computers, which were about the size of a small cabinet.
Okay.
And it had 4 megabytes of removable memory and an 8K processor.
Awesome.
For that, and 1 screen and a 60-line per minute printer that needed a paper tape, it was $42,000. And in those days, you could buy a house for $42,000. But it really made a huge difference in our operation. In the past, we were doing about $5 million a year in sales at that time, and we were finding it was taking us 3 weeks just to get out our month-end statements. Mm-hmm. When we put in the computer, we were able to ensure that we got the statements out within 3 days. And that allowed us to grow considerably, and within a year, we went from 5 million to over 10 million.
Wow.
So going back early, I was very hooked on the differences that
Automation.
digitization could make to business.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, I had discussions with GE. I was fascinated about the way that our system, in my mind, seemed to be a very applicable opportunity, because rather than the complexities of putting something together, where you have to make sure that the computer makes sure that all the parts are in the right places at the right time, when you're taking apart lumber, you basically are just tracking it until it gets processed, and then the byproducts can be processed separately, but you're never worrying about coordinating the inputs. So, that became very interesting to me. I spoke with GE. General Electric had an economic offset with the province of Manitoba. They had supplied some large electrical turbine generating systems in that province. And they wanted to use our technology, our facility, as a means of fulfilling an economic offset that they had committed to the province of Manitoba. So we partnered on it, and over a 2.5 year period, we went to Scandinavia to see some scanning technologies. And in the end, in 1991, I patented the OptiStress system, which was our computer integrated manufacturing application, which also used AI for process control to run the facility and AI for the scanning analysis.
Okay.
So that was how I got into this area of technology. And I can tell you that we built our facility in 1995. Our sales then were $37 million. And by 2001, utilizing our new technology, our sales had gone to $240 million in that year.
Impressive.
When I was doing my research with General Electric, I had been getting information on the forest industry and specific costs through a collaboration I had going with the government of Alberta through the Alberta Research Council. And that information became very useful to me. But in the process, again, I was a young man, and there was another young bureaucrat who I was working with who was helping me get the data. And he seemed to like very much my fascination, my fixation, my compulsion with avoiding waste, with utilization. And in fact, in 1995, I trademarked the line, the best form of conservation is efficient utilization. But he really appreciated how I had approached this and how AI provided this opportunity to optimize value.
Mm-hmm.
And we went our separate ways. However, out of nowhere in 2016, I got a call from him. He had now become a senior bureaucrat in the government of Alberta, and inviting me to go to China to a conference that was being put on to review the decortication industry. And they specifically wanted to get my opinion as to whether I felt that AI would be an applicable technology for the hemp fiber processing opportunity because of my work with wood fiber in that same capacity. And because he remembered my perspective, out of nowhere he called me, and I had 10 days notice, quickly got my visa, and off I was to China. And when I saw how they operated, I mean, their whole value chain, their whole business model is entirely different. It's completely focused on flexibility using labor. I mean, if they have to move it this way, that, and do this and that, no problem, because the labor isn't a real cost factor. And this gives them great utilization of the fiber. But I also appreciated that that just wouldn't translate to North America. And with that in mind, I came back home, and the next day I incorporated Canadian Industrial Hemp Corporation. Now, I should also tell you that when I went to do my MBA in 2001, this was just 3 years after the Canadian government had legalized hemp growing again. In 2 courses, we needed to pick a new industry or to create an industry. And for both of these courses, I picked hemp. And when I read the information about the hemp fiber characteristics, I was hooked. With hemp fiber being 10 times stronger than Douglas fir, which is known in North America as the strongest softwood fiber, I was amazed. And then to hear that it was also antibacterial, it was really, a very exciting moment for me. So when I had the opportunity now in 2016 to start working with the fiber processing, I was very fortunate. I found an engineer in Alberta who had been running the Alberta government's hemp research facility. He had originally spec'd it and installed it. A lovely guy, very, very talented, very bright. And together we developed this AI-driven smart factory. And with that in mind, the key elements were really have flexibility, have automated quality control, have the ability, therefore, to increase the potential value added through optimization, and significantly, to be a low-cost producer, and more significantly, not to be a commodity producer.
Mm.
And the reason being that, as I have written often in LinkedIn, the problem with being a commodity producer is the only real thing that you can differentiate yourself with is cost. And it always makes you vulnerable to having your margins eroded and lacking stability in your marketing opportunity.
Sure.
And commodities, by definition, prices go up and down. There is much less stability. So over a period of 18 months, we worked together, and we have now gotten to the point with our intellectual property that we've been granted patent pending on a global basis. And very interestingly, the first place in the world which has already registered our patent is China.
Huh. Surprisingly. So this is super appealing to me because in order for us to compete, or people to compete really, especially on the international scale, we have to be able to process volume and keep our costs down, right? And AI is really reducing costs when it comes to our labor expense, especially if we're having to shift, like you said, from one facility to the next.
Well, let me give you a different perspective. It's not on the labor cost necessarily that you want to focus. But as an example, if you look at the ability to have AI-driven predictive maintenance, which comes inherent in an AI system because of its optimization focus, they say that on maintenance costs alone, you'll save 40% a year.
Wow.
And that you will also benefit by having 25% less downtime. I mean, that's where you make money. And Mandi, it's an interesting element to bring up because people think that AI might be this it's like you have this little monkey in a box who's really smart and he knows what to do. No, it's about the fact that it lets you take all the pieces of the operation, optimize them so that they perform exactly as you want them and need them to, and that they communicate in exactly the way that you want them and need them to. And in that way, you get incremental savings through the entire process. So predictive maintenance, 40% in costs over the year, 25% reduction in downtime. You take something like automated production scheduling. Well, how valuable is it if you have a major consumer client like Ralph Lauren to be able to tell them exactly when their production is going to be made, because the system automatically figures it out. And if there's any delay in that production schedule, the system will automatically send them an email saying there's been a delay. So we're not going to make it on March the 8th, we're going to make it now on March the 10th, and we're not going to ship it on March the 11th, we're going to ship it on March the 13th, and it's going to arrive at your door on March the 15th. But the system handles all of those logistics and all of the analysis, and that's in less than a minute and a half.
It's impressive. It's again where I struggle. I laugh because this automation piece is not something I'm good at. I mean, we talk, even when we talk, you're like, why are you writing invoices? This is still the format I do this. So when we talk like being in the lumber industry and the secondary post-processing, how is that similar? And are you going into creating products for that same end user, or where are you, where are you guys headed in the hemp space for production of material? Back
So
into that
again,
space?
we don't produce commodity outputs like the bast in the herd. We
Right,
produce finished products.
right.
So the finished products that we intend to focus on would be the biocomposite pellets, where again, because of our AI capabilities, the system is able to automatically formulate, custom formulate the pellets. And as well, the system is able to automatically produce those custom formulated pellets. So again, in the type of environment that we have, unlike the conventional environments where you are producing for inventory, you're just going to pump bundles through the system. We produce to order. And this way we have much less waste, much greater control on our production throughput. And again, with our automated quality control system, we're able to ensure that the quality of the bales that we put in are consistent with the needs of the end user. So we use a very advanced scanning technology, which, unlike a plain optical scanner, which measures the size or the location of an object,
Right.
our technology actually measures the internal material characteristics of the fiber.
Okay.
And the 5 characteristics that we are focused on, because these are the ones that matter to the customer, are cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin, moisture, and color. The cellulose defines the strength. Hemicellulose is a byproduct, a sugar. Lignin defines adhesion. The moisture has a number of areas of interest, but it primarily affects us from a production point of view with the processing rate.
Mm-hmm.
If it's too wet, then we'll bypass the bale automatically. But if it's just a bit too wet, the system will automatically adjust the production speed so that it won't tear the fiber.
Okay, so this plays a big role in standards, right? Because if you're able to adjust to take product in, it doesn't have to be dried a certain way or processed a certain way. It changes your ability or the industry's ability to provide an outlet for all of our farmers. Is that right? Because really they can.
Yes, I think it's critical because again, one of the things that I've written about a number of times is consistency, and without consistency, there isn't a market. And I think it's unfair to the farmers because it ends up becoming an all or nothing equation in terms of the material they supply. But if you have a good understanding of the material characteristics and you develop a wide range of products that can be automatically formulated, not just in terms of bioplastics, but in terms of non-wovens, in terms of different levels of textile quality, then you optimize the utilization, you optimize the value of the fiber. And so that's where we believe that the real opportunity comes. Because, Mandi, I must tell you that our technology allows us to be so much more cost effective than a conventional comparably sized unit to the one that we will work with, which is a Cretus 7 ton per hour from Belgium. As far as we're concerned, it's the Rolls Royce of the industry in terms of large volume capacity. The company's been around for 110 years.
Mm-hmm.
They have a huge amount of experience and expertise in the decortication equipment manufacturing. They do it not only for hemp and flax, but also for banana leaves, for cactus, and for recycled fibers from textiles.
Cool.
I'm sorry, please.
I said cool. I've seen
Oh.
their equipment in another presentation, and it is significantly larger. I mean, it's night and day to some different decorticating facilities I've seen, and yes.
Well, it's $12 million different. I mean, it's a $12 million, production line. It's large volume. It scales. It's a very impressive piece of equipment and very expensive.
Yes.
But at the same time, it provides the reliability, the consistency. It provides the flexibility in terms of the number of times that you would need to clean fiber for different applications, etc. This is the type of thing that the hemp industry, like every industry, needs from a processing or manufacturing perspective. It's not really an option. You can pretend that it's not necessary, and that may be true for a while. But you see, because our technology is so much more effective, our gross margins are double to what the conventional industry produces. And I believe that it's important for me to bring down our margins, because that's the only way we will actually help the industry grow, is by bringing down the cost of the fiber, bringing down the cost of the end products, and in that way, more people will buy it, more farmers will grow it, there will be more to decorticate, but as far as I'm concerned, as a true believer, the most important thing is to make sure that more hemp is grown.
Yes.
And so, but you see, the reality being, in that world of me bringing down my margins by being more cost effective, I impact other processors because of the margins that they can generate. So, this is where I have tried to make a point of letting people understand what the economics and the dynamics are of an AI-driven smart factory. And it's not just for hemp processing. It really doesn't matter. It's the ability to be able to slice a salami. It's no longer one pass through and you get what you get. Now it's, do custom cutting between the front and the end line. In that regard, we have a blockchain registry right in our system. And that allows us to track all the material bale by bale, which allows us to correlate those bales to each farmer. And we actually monitor and track how much dollar yield we make on each bale. So we're able to come up with the average dollar yield per bale. And based on the average dollar yield per bale per farmer, we know which our most productive farmers are for our needs. Then we can take all their agronomic data, because before we process any of their stock, they provide us with the varietal, the date they planted, date they harvested. Was it irrigated or dry land? Was it fertilized? What fertilizers? How often? And then we take the top 5 farmers and we take their agronomic data. We feed it through the AI system, through its machine learning capabilities. It will do a reverse statistical analysis and come up with the optimum agronomic equation. It will say, based on these factors and looking at the different yields from the different farmers, this would have been your ideal solution. And we give that information every year to the farmers free, to help them become more productive, and hopefully they can earn more money.
So then, do they contract with you as the processor to buy the product and then you sell your end product on?
Yes.
Okay, what's your volume? How many acres would you say? And I know that's hard because, of course, there's so much to consider, but what are we looking at in order to support an industry the size that you're looking to go after with composites. Wow.
Well, each of our facilities is designed and projected to be able to produce 50,000 tons of throughput a year. 50,000 tons would come from 42,000 acres of land grown for seed, and that's because statistically, the volume of stock that you get from 1 acre planted for hemp seed is between 1 to 1.5 tons per acre.
Okay.
When you are planting for fiber, you are planting the plants closer together, they grow much taller, and statistically you get 3.6 tons to 12 tons per acre.
Whoa,
Now,
that's a big difference. 3.6 to 12?
it has a lot to do again with your agronomics and your microclimates, your climates, and the varietals.
Yes.
But, the point is, so we use in all of our pro forma analysis a figure of 5 tons per acre. We feel that that's a reasonable number. And based on that, we pay farmers up to $250 a ton for their stock. And working on a 5 ton per acre ratio, they would earn $1,250 gross per acre, and their costs would bring them down to netting about $675 per acre.
That's good information. What are you comparing in your area? What are some of your big, or I guess not even in your area, globally, nationally, whatever? What are some of the crops that hemp competes with when it comes to cost and or cost? I mean, when our farmers are growing, where are we really looking to? Go ahead.
Mandi, I'm not a farmer, but the only thing I can tell you is farmers are very hardworking and clever people. And the bottom line is that it's not how much it costs them to do it, it's how much they can put in their pocket.
Sure.
So today, farmers will get between $500 and $600 for regular non-organic hemp seed per acre.
Okay.
So this is a better equation because I'm talking a net number.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because don't forget, so you're comparing the 600 to the 1250.
Yeah.
And
no, I look at
I'm sorry?
I look at the net. I mean, if I walked in and said, hey, this is how much I'm going to pay you, and their costs are, say they get $900 an acre, and their cost is $900, that doesn't leave them anything. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I love that you broke it down to net profits.
Well, the other thing is that if you look at hemp in terms of where it's appropriate.
Yeah.
People often think that, the hotter a place is, the better it is. It's an exotic type of plant. It's not. One of the interesting things about northern Canada, which is very often overlooked, is that it's probably one of the best places, if not the best place in North America for growing hemp. You get one crop a year, but the quality of what you will grow will tend to be exceptional. And the reason is because hemp needs a bit of water, but it'll thrive without water. It's a weed.
Mm-hmm.
But what it loves is sun.
Mm-hmm.
And in northern Canada, you're getting areas where the sun's there 22, 23 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people, know that or appreciate that, that makes a big difference. And that also impacts the quality of the fiber that you'll be able to generate.
So when we talk about supplying the big industry, one of the big questions, someone just had a good question for you, Robert. What about the snow? How often, cold weather, it's growing in 120 days, right? But what are you looking at as far as weather up there? How many crops do you get?
No, you're getting one crop a year.
Yeah.
And, if you are good at your logistics and you're working closely with the farmers, you can coordinate it perfectly. Because you see, when you're growing for fiber, you're talking about a 12-week grow cycle.
Yeah.
And the timing will work out just perfectly up there. but again, the economics are different. What it means is that we would have higher costs associated with storage. It takes 300 acres if you're actually fulfilling fire regulations to store 50,000 bales, because that's what 50,000 tons of throughput is, 50,000 bales.
So it really is
Now,
this. It's something that when we talk about, like, especially as people want to get into the industry, understanding that the front end and back end of the harvest, the storage piece before processing, and then once it's processed, that next step. I just don't think that that piece is discussed very often either. Robert, can you kind of explain what does that look like? I mean, is that storage going to happen on your facility? You will have a place to store all of those bales as you're processing them
no,
in?
no. The other
Okay,
thing is, if you're storing 50,000 bales, the last thing you're going to do is store them all together.
sure,
Because
of
if
course.
there does happen to be a fire, you're toast. So we address that in two ways. First of all, in those areas, for areas where snow is an issue, what you're going to do is you're going to wrap every bale, and you're going to have a pre, you're going to have an area designed to open your bales and check, for the weighing and all that, which is not associated with the infeed to the decortication line itself. So it's a pre-processing environment. I don't know what you'd call it, a welcome environment.
Almost in the harvesting piece, right? I've kind of broken it up like it's the seed to or genetics to harvest, and then processing is when you would pick it up and take it from there. But yeah, so talk to me a little bit about the end market. I want to kind of help understand, or for myself, even understand what the volume output is in order for us to sustain big volume. Because I hear all the time, why aren't we doing this? Why isn't every automotive industry using hemp, right? And what is required in order for these companies or people to get into the industry in order to supply a Ralph Lauren or a Lego or a Toyota, some of these big global producers? And how do you, as an organization, I guess, recommend or plan to fix this or solve this to be able to feed into that industry big enough?
Well, again, first of all, from my perspective, it all results from our technology and our use of data processing to give us better answers.
Mhm.
Now, sorry, ask me the question again, Mandy. You lost me there. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm really good at asking 4 or 5 questions at one time because I
I
get
noticed. Yeah, I'm
um,
really good at getting
so
confused.
in
Yeah.
our end markets, right? Our big markets. What do we
Yes.
need to do as an industry or as a company, CIHC, to be able to fulfill an order to a large manufacturer
Got
like?
it. So what we need to be able to do is provide them with large volumes on a reliable and consistent basis. The material we provide has to have good grading, some type of objective standards grading. And I personally believe that it is critical to have automated quality control. We also, CIHC, because each of its facilities will be 100% digitally controlled, our business model is to build a network of 5 facilities across North America so that we can be in a unique position to provide large-scale end users with distributed manufacturing. Uh, I generally explain what I mean about distributed manufacturing with an example. Imagine Ralph Lauren, who has now announced that he's going to he's going to produce hemp fiber jeans. And the company's going to probably spend 20 to $40 million marketing that product. And he's going to go and he's going to look for some fibers to supply him. And everything's going, he's going to make the deal at a certain price and everybody's going to be happy and it's going to be going along well. And then let's say 3 months into the contract, there's a hailstorm that takes place in the area. They say that the economic geographic area for the distance between the farms and the plant shouldn't exceed a 2-hour drive, so 120 miles either side all around the facility. Well, if there's going to be a hailstorm, there's a good chance that it'll hit within most of that area. If there's going to be a hurricane, so there's always the possibility with the natural fiber that your supply gets wiped out by nature. So, I mean, what does the supplier do who doesn't have the flexibility to, turn immediately elsewhere and fulfill the needs? All he can really do is call up Ralph Lauren and say, "Sorry, I'm sorry." And
You
I don't
know,
think, yeah, I don't think Ralph Lauren's going to be pleased about that. But in our particular case, because all of the production is identified by bale quality, the system will automatically just go through the network of facilities, find the inventory that's available that fulfills those needs, and the order will be transferred immediately to that facility so that the customer doesn't get let down. So, I mean, these are the types of customer-centric considerations that we have. Another example, as I told you before, with the predictive scheduling or the automated scheduling, a person goes to place an order, they sit down at the computer. The first question that comes up on the computer screen is, when are you going to want this order delivered? And I'd like it at my office or my operations by such and such a date. Okay, then it's going to say, okay, what material are you looking for? What's the contract number? Please review this, that, and whatever. Well, within 1 minute, the system is going to tell it,
what's
you have
available.
been, your production has been scheduled for this time, and within the next 30 seconds, it will say, it is going to be shipped on this date at this time. And within the next 10 seconds, it will say, it will arrive at your door at this time. So, I mean, and this idea that, the system will automatically advise them if there's going to be any delay, at least they can plan around it. But how valuable is that to the end user?
Well, look at what happened this year with the land hurricane in the United States and wiped out 140 million acres or something of crop that now, what do you do with that, right? Or you gave an example earlier that I don't think that another huge value to AI, like you said, is this 24-hour, 7-day-a-week processing. And what happens if you lose a hammer on your mill and it's shipped in from California or from China, and now, sorry, you don't get your part, and now your entire facility is down. There's no way you can maintain a contract to the size and the volume that we're looking to fulfill if those aren't figured out and those aren't able to be redirected to a different facility. And so, yeah, I just, the more we talk about this and the more that I talk about scalability or where we're going to step in as a country in the United States to compete. And I know you're not there, but this is where,
Let me give you an example, though. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years, when you go to a machine and you get a can of pop, the can is automatically calling the distribution company once the number of cans has been dispensed, so that it never happens that a customer is willing to put in $2.50 for a can of water with sugar. So this way, that machine will always be kept full. Those are the types of things that change the way that customers react to your particular brand, to your particular business. Mm-hmm. And, we recognize that we have a critical relationship with the farmers that we work with, which is why I have a personal interest as well to facilitate co-ops using our technology so that they can benefit. And in that regard, I'm really anxious to work with a group that wants to be in the position that the co-op will have the work with the farmers for the supply, and at the same time, they'll get the benefit of the value added that we can create to their fiber.
Yes, and give them a way. I have a soft spot for small towns and rural areas, and giving them as a small town a way to keep their families from they graduate high school and they're out of there as fast as they can because there's nothing for them to do. And so I think co-ops are definitely something that I, for a year and a half, have said.
It's very nice that you like them, but on a very pragmatic level, research has demonstrated that
Yeah.
co-ops are 30% more likely to stay in business than private companies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not too hard to understand.
Right.
You become part of a community, and community, especially this day and age, is so critical. It gives people a place where they can be employed. They have a social environment. I personally think that, we live in a very isolated environment in terms of the way that people often interact. I think that there's a lot of lonely people out there, and I think that a work environment with the right rules, with the right agreements, with the right commitments among the people can be an ideal place to build a community that thrives. And people making good wages, again, in our particular model, the lowest paid job was $17 an hour plus full 24% benefits hourly. That's how I see the deal to be done. And we still make a 47% EBITDA, operating that way. Why shouldn't we be fair to the farmer and fair to the people we work with?
Absolutely. Yes, we're getting away from greed. When we talked about a revolution, I think that's exactly what we're up against, is more and more people are saying, listen, we've got to back up and get away from a few people owning everybody's wealth and start taking care of the people that are growing it.
We got to look after each other. That goes without saying. And it would be nice to see if hemp could, bring some type of unification opportunity to the good people of the world.
Yes. Okay, so I've got a couple other questions I want to ask real quick. We're about out of time, but when you divide facilities, or you're putting, say, 5 facilities out to maintain, consistency, where in the world, or how are you segmenting? Where will they be?
Well, at this particular point, CIHC's intention is to license and partner with the 5 facilities in Canada and the United States and Mexico. And that would be the first 5 facilities. And beyond that, we expect that if the model as we propose it works as well as we believe it will, we'll be building a number of other facilities within that environment. And for other areas of the world, we'll be licensing the technology.
Awesome. Okay. And then when we talk about standards for the industry, right? You mentioned it a little bit. Something that really stood out to me is your ability to control the standards within the operation is pretty powerful, because every time that supply chain is broken or there's a new person that steps in, that standard and understanding that standard changes the ability to buy or sell or protection in doing so, right? What type of standards does the industry really need to be focusing on as we move this forward, move the industry forward?
Quite honestly, I don't know that without some type of scanning and automation, we can have standards. Now, I will mention this, that our technology, the automated quality control, again, the machine learning over 12 to 18 months, we believe, will take the data, which will automatically sort. So it'll say, okay, this is for somebody who's using textiles, and these are the criteria. And over 12 to 18 months, it will create its own grading system, because it will have what's in the top 25% quartile, the characteristics for people who need high quality textiles. But it will have the top 25% quartile for people who are using it for biocomposites. So they'll be similar but not the same.
Right.
And they will do the top quarter and the bottom quarter and the 2 middle quarters. So it'll be excellent, good, fair, and poor, but that will be grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. But you'll have one textile, one T, you'll have one biocomposite, one B. And I believe that our technology will become the de facto automated grading standard system for the industry.
Okay, now I'm super excited. Between the co-op and the standards piece, it's where I think we need to be. And so I'm
Can I
excited.
say one more thing, Mandy?
Yeah.
You get me so excited talking about the smart stock system. And I forgot what I was going to say.
We were talking about standards and co-op and the grading system.
Oh, no, I know what I want to talk about, the level of risk in implementing our technology. Yes. So, because of my background in this type of environment before, I was very, very aware of designing this and mitigating any risk. So from that point of view, the way that I've done it is that all of the equipment, all of the technology, all of the systems that we employ are in existence, proven, and in application in other processing and manufacturing environments. So in essence, our application, it is intellectual property, but it's an application built with AI around it and advanced manufacturing capabilities throughout it.
I think that is, I mean, you said it very well, but I think that, I don't even remember what I was just going to say. Now you're wearing off on me, Robert. It's coming through our screen.
It happens, yeah.
See how you are.
Yeah, it happens.
Oh, when we were talking about the risk and about understanding, right? I think that one more question as we were kind of on this, the advice to people getting into the industry for smaller facilities, right? And sustainability, something that I hear all the time is, well, $3 million or $12 million is too much money. So I'm going to buy this $300,000 decorticating facility. What's a time frame you think that market, I mean, you said earlier, it may last for a little while. What's a time frame you think that is actually going to be?
I have to qualify that statement. It will adapt itself, and this is what I'm suggesting. The market opportunity there is not for the farmer to be selling it to a broker, to be selling it to an end producer. There's just too many pieces of that puzzle. The farmers and the brokers should be working together. They should work together in terms of creating a product, generating a margin, and then agreeing between themselves what percentage of the margin each of them gets. That will be efficient, and that will fulfill because the broker is going to be able to be very closely involved, or the distributor, with the farmer, so that they can ensure that the quality that they need is consistent. And I think in that way, there'll be greater margin to be generated. And I believe that you will see better market penetration and better quality product.
For sure. For sure. Well, I'm excited. I want to talk more about the AI. I want to talk more about the opportunity that it brings. I don't think it's something that's discussed nearly enough, especially when we talk about the ability to look at processes and what's efficient and what's not. I'm excited for this grading and a standard to be set to understand what's the best quality seed or place to grow it or how to grow it. For each different product. I think that right now we're still really guessing, and the United States specifically is very far behind on that.
Well, you can't take action with a thought. Mm-hmm. And this is what's so frustrating with government, because they'll talk about, this should be done and that needs to be done, but it's about actually getting things done. Mm-hmm. And, the hemp industry needs to recognize itself, as it has at certain levels, as being, out of necessity, more pragmatic, more cost-effective, and more customer-oriented. I think that CIHC does all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really, really excited. I'm excited to have you back. I'm excited to have you on our team. If anybody would like to get in touch with you, Robert, or has questions about partnering or anything like that, how do they reach out to you? How does
They RZINER at CIHCORP.com. Ziner at CIHcorp.com.
Perfect. I shared that. I also shared his LinkedIn to connect with you on LinkedIn. He has tons, Robert puts out tons of great articles and content about the industry. We're very forward thinking, but this definitely isn't a manufacturing facility in our backyard. We're looking at big scale and moving the industry along. What can we do to support you, Robert? Where can we really help? Anybody listening, anybody looking to get involved? What can we do to support CIHC?
Well, our focus for the last year has been on our product development side in the biocomposite formulations. And we took the step of retaining a chemist who has a background working in China. And we have created our own formulation at this point, which we're working with a large thermoplastic producer here in Ontario. Anybody who's interested in getting some of our sample pellets, we'd be happy to hear from them and very happy to send them some samples.
Cool. I'm really excited. This is a big market. If anybody else needs anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Robert is a member and joins in on our meetings pretty often. And so please join in. We'll look forward to hearing from you again. Like, share, join our group. We're also on Spotify, Google, all different types of platforms. I can't even name them all. I just started a Patreon account, which I'm really excited about as well. So I'll send out links. If you guys have any questions, reach out. Other than that, Robert, thank you very much for your time. And we'll see everybody.
Mandi, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. You're the best.
Thank you. Okay, see you later, Robert.
Bye-bye.